So, random quick video here. Just got my parts washer all cleaned out. We had a pretty substantial layer of scum in the bottom of it. Haven't used it in a while. Um, and actually, it's been because I got a North Star hot water pressure washer, was the main reason that we haven't used this in a while. But we're going to be doing a 6 liter Power Stroke engine here in the next couple days, and so figured I'd get this cleaned out and going again for cleaning some of the parts on that, and figured I'd show um, just a setup on this real quick. Not that it's anything fancy or whatever. I think I got this one from Northern Tool. It's one of the wider ones. The normal ones that you get from Harbor Freight or whatever are only about yay wide or something like that, and you can't fit like a even like a Cummins 5.9 valve cover or whatever won't fit in um, the standard parts washer from Harbor Freight, or that size anyways. But so I'm actually using diesel as a solvent in here, which at first might sound kind of sketchy or something, but I'll show you why in a second. But I've actually got a block heater in here to warm it up as well. My shop will cool down to ambient temperature because it's not very well insulated, and so if it's -20 out or something like that, it really sucks to go dipping your hands in this thing when it's that cold, and it doesn't clean very well either when it's that cold. And so hopefully you can see the heat coming off of the block heater there. That block heater is a coolant block heater, and for how relatively small that thing is, it's 750 watts. So, and the block heater is probably only as long as like this little light is here or something like that, and it's 750 watts. I was looking through Zero Start's catalog, and they, of course, have block heaters intended for coolant, like that one is, and block heaters intended for oil. And what I noticed that I found kind of interesting was that the coolant block heaters, for their physical size, are much higher wattage than the oil block heaters. And with this, with this deal here with the diesel fuel, we've actually burned through a couple block heaters um, uh, using coolant block heaters. And so now that I know, now that I recognize that that's what the difference, and I would assume that's kind of the only and main difference between the block heaters, is the ones for oil are much physically larger size than the ones for coolant per the same wattage. Um, so once that one burns out, then I'm going to put a block heater in there intended for oil. Right now, I don't have it set up on a thermostat or anything like that. We're just extremely careful to make sure to unplug that block heater, because obviously if you were to just let it go, it would get this fuel very, very warm and potentially catch it on fire, which would obviously not be a good deal. Um, for now, I've just got the original pump setup that it came with, and then I got a brush that has like a flow through brush, and this thing works a treat. It's absolutely fantastic. Um, I think I got that off a Snap-on truck, if I remember right, and I paid quite a bit for it, but we have used the shit out of it, and you can see the bristles are all still in really good shape. So, if you see one of those on the Snap-on truck or whatever, while they are expensive for being a brush, they are very good quality. Um, but so yeah, like I said, we use diesel in this for a couple of reasons. One reason is it's about the cheapest thing out there as far as any kind of like cleaning solvent. I have tried using. I've never tried a water-based solvent in this thing, but I'm just not a fan of other water-based solvents that I've seen in the past. They don't seem to work worth a shit, in my opinion. Um, And the diesel fuel, obviously is oil soluble. We did try this. I think it was like a methanol. Yeah, I think it was a methanol based solvent. We did try some solvent in here that I think was a methanol base, and it actually wasn't oil soluble. So it was a total and utter worthless piece of shit, whatever it was. And then of course there are, you know, just a plethora of different solvents out there. But the problem is that they're expensive, and the problem that I find when something is expensive is that it then becomes precious, and you don't want to change it out. Say your solvent is very expensive, you don't want to change it out frequently like you should be doing to keep it clean, um, because of the high cost. When this gets really contaminated, I just put it in my waste oil, and then I've got a waste oil heater, and then I just burn it through the waste oil heater, and no big deal. Right now, I've got in the neighborhood of like 22 gallons or something in here. So at, current prices around here, it's, call it $70 or something like that. If I was to be using a specific, parts washer intended solvent, that could very easily cost me a couple $100 depending on which one I get. And especially once you let the block heater run for a little while and warm the diesel up to about, even 75 degrees or something like that, 90 degrees, it works fantastic as a solvent. But the other thing for why we chose diesel fuel is it's actually extremely safe. So we very often have just a regular shop rag in here, and so I'll dip that into the diesel fuel and let it get all soaked up and everything. And so a dripping rag with diesel fuel on it, and if you take a propane torch, it'll burn, but the second that you drop it in the diesel fuel, it self-extinguishes, because diesel fuel is actually fairly hard to ignite, and in a case like this, easy to extinguish because it does not off gas on its own at room temperature. So I guess let that burn for a second here. And so you can see it's smoldering. Well, it's on fire, but if you just simply dip it under the liquid, then it goes out. Gasoline will off gas on its own. But gasoline, the liquid of gasoline does not burn. Only the vapor of gasoline burns. But the problem with gasoline is that it off gases on its own. Just sitting here room temperature, diesel does not. So of course I say that and then it sustains a flame, but you can see actually, yeah, it's going out. There you go. So yeah, it goes out on its own. And so of course it will sustain a flame easier as it gets warmer. But it still is not, nearly as dangerous as some of the solvents that they sell for these things. And of course, obviously, it would be a horrendously stupid idea to put gasoline in something like this, because one tiny spark and away she goes. Originally, this had like a spring-loaded latch right here. Well, yeah, so I bought a smaller parts washer, which is this guy here that we actually use as like a used oil drain. And so it had a shindig kind of like that. And it seems like the way that works is that it's got a piece of solder in the center of it, and the theory being that if you get a fire in here, that spring-loaded latch has the piece of solder in it, and it'll melt the piece of solder from the heat of the fire, and it'll automatically close the lid. Great idea. The problem was that I was standing here cleaning parts one day, and the spring inside of that mechanism shot the fuck out and hit the roof, and about took my head off in the process. And so what we do is we actually just have a bungee cord on there like so, and then that's how we hold it open. But again, because we use diesel fuel in it, there's less of a risk of the solvent, or the fuel in this case, igniting. Yeah, there she is. If you haven't tried it yet, try diesel fuel. Works a treat.